So today, we're going to talk about slopes, the big concept that you talked about in Algebra 1. We're just going to review it today, and you'll get tons of time to practice. Again, this is really important for what we're doing throughout this entire unit. So if we have 2 points, it represents the endpoints of a line segment, and we want to find the slope of that line. You are going to use this formula. Remember, slope is rise over run, or the change in y over the change in x. Make sure you make this change. This should be a minus sign. So in that top there, it's y2 minus y1, not an equal sign. Okay? You use this formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember that from Algebra 1? Yes. Okay. Fortunately, you will not be given this formula. You have to memorize it. But we'll talk about here in the last example how you can find the slope without having to memorize this formula. Okay? But again, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. One thing that we see a lot of, you have to remember, a point is xy. xy. Sometimes we get these flip-flops and we say x1, x2, y1, y2. xy, xy. Okay? And y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Nice review of Algebra 1. Okay? So what you're going to do is we want to find the slope of a line segment with the following endpoints. First thing you need to do is label. Remember which one comes first in a point, x or y? X, alphabetical. So this is our first x, so this will be our x1, which means 4 would be our y1. That means 8, we would label it as our x2, and 10 is our y2. Everyone okay with that? Label those first. And then you just plug them into the slope formula. What is the slope formula? What is it? How are we giving it? So we're asking.
You have to know that. Change y's or change of x.
Y is always in the top, x is always in the bottom. Okay, well, what's our top going to look like when we plug in our values? What's our y2? 10. This is always a minus sign, so it's always the number minus. What's our y1? What do we label as our y1? 4. Okay? So then you go to the bottom. What's our x2? 8. Again, this is always minus. What's our x1? Negative 2. What about this bottom here? When we have a double negative, what does it turn to? A positive. So it's plus, plus, one giant plus sign. So when we clean this up, 10 minus 4 is what? And 8 plus 2 is? What must you always do with fractions? Simplify. What does 6 over 10 simplify down to? 3 over 5. Sometimes you can simplify, sometimes you can't. Always check and see if you can simplify your fractions.
Remember, your calculators can do that too. Graphing calculators, you can do your alpha y equals, have your fraction bar, do 6 over 10 reduce. Or calculators, just do 6 ABC 10 and equal.
Okay. Questions over that? Go ahead, try 2. Give you a couple minutes. We'll go over it. Try 2 on your own.
Do on your own. Pay attention to the negatives and positives. Labeling key. Very successful at labeling. If you don't label, you might make a mistake.
And then you take those values and you plug it into that formula. When we plug it in, what does the top end up looking like? This formula right here. What does the top look like? Emmett? Good. And what's the bottom going to look like? Okay. 2 steps ahead. 11 minus -10. Again, we have a double negative. So what happens to it? Turn positive. Double negatives turn positive. So let's speed it up. What's -9 minus 3? What's 11 plus 10? Always check and see, does that simplify? -12 over 21, -4 over 7. And we are done. Always check and see if they reduce. If they don't reduce, then you're just done at that step. Okay? Questions over that. Again, this is going to be super important for what we are doing throughout this entire unit.
All right, well, what if you don't have points? What do we do if we don't have points? Well, I'll tell you what we do when we don't have points. We start counting. All right, so we have 2 lane segments, A, B, and CD. They're graphed below. Look at them. We would determine the slope of both the lines graphically. Remember, slope is rise over run. Change in y is a change in x. All right, so some people have a hard time with this. I'll tell you, it's easy. You count. Most of you guys can count, right? You need to take your shoes off, count your toes, go for it. That's ridiculous. Because sometimes you go over 10, you only have 10 fingers and a thumb, right? So it doesn't work out. So what we're going to do is this. Let's figure out what these slopes are. AB. First determine where's AB. Which line's AB? Well, this guy right here, right? The other one's CD. So what I want you to do is very helpful if you start left to right. It'll keep you organized. What point is on the left side of AB? A or B? Which one's the furthest left? A. So basically it's like a little road map. How do I get from one point to the other? Again, this is a review you guys have. So if you guys have other ways to do this, fine. But I'm saying, if you start left to right, it's going to keep you organized all the time. So if you need to tell me directions, how to go from A to B, how would you tell me to do? What would I have to do to go to A to B? What's the first move I got to go? You can't say go diagonal. I have to go up. You're saying up, right? And let's see how many we have to go up. So again, it's just counting. And this is one thing too, some people have issues. You don't count the one you're at. You always start once, the next jump you go to. So I hear 5, let's double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the same level, so I went +5. Because going up is +5, correct? Now, that gets me on the same level as B. How do I get over to B? And go what now? Over, right? And since I'm going to the right, think about another line, those are positive numbers. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I went +10, right? So it's always rise over run. How high up did I go? 5. That's the rise part. How far over? How far did I run? 10. What should I do to every fraction? What's 5 over 10 simplify to? 1/2. Another way of thinking of this too, some people do that, but some people were taught about trying to find intersections. Again, if you can't see those intersections nice and neat, always do this works out. But if I start at A, where's the next time that A sits perfectly on a point? Well, if I look at this, if I have to go, the next dot looks like it's going to be right there, right? So I have to go up 1 over 2. So the slope is 1/2. However you want to look at it. Sometimes students can't see that's intersecting right there, right there, right there, right there, and the other one. So if you can't do that, just do the whole thing. Rise over run. All right? I want you guys, give me a couple seconds now, to figure out what CD is. My hint to you is start at the furthest left point. All right? Give you a few seconds to figure out what the slope of CD is. Remember, it is rise over run. A few seconds there. Starting to left first. Good. Won't be wrong. Just don't count correctly. People are tabulating, you're tabulating, you're getting answers. Some numbers written down, right? It's half the battle. Write something down. All right, good. So I started at C because C is the furthest left point. I don't care what order it tells you in. Some people say, oh, if it's DC, I got to start there. It doesn't matter. Start at the furthest left point. Segment CD is there. If I'm at point C, give me directions to go to point D. What do I have to do? Go down, because I always want to go up or down first. So I have to go down. If I'm going down the Y direction, is that going to be a positive or negative number? If I'm going down, it's negative. Think about a number line. Negatives are down here, the lower Y's, positives up high. So let's see how far I have to go down. 1, 2.
Why can't you go over?
You could go over, but that's where people start making mistakes. Because it's rise over run. It's the Y's over the X's. You could go over, you just have to know that you can flip your fraction. So, that's what I'm telling you, you start in the Y direction first, you won't make a mistake. You could, but all I want you to know is your fraction, you're going to flip at the end. Because it's Y's over X's. So if you go up or down first, you'll always be correct.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so if you know that you went over, down, some people did that. Some people went over, they went this direction, then this direction. Just notice, when we're doing slope, it's Y's over X's. So you'd have to go change that, flip that flip that fraction, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? So I went down 12, right? So that would give me a negative 12. I'm going to go ahead and write that over here. My Y's is negative 12. I go down negative 12. How far over do I go in the X direction? 8. Let's figure out how to get it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Since I went to the right, that would be a positive. So I went positive 8. If you guys went the other way, you probably got 8 over negative 12. So you guys did? Yes. But remember, it's rise over run. What do I need to do with all of my fractions? Reduce. Now, those of you with borrowed calculators, you probably had an error. Well, not error, but you had a mistake, right? You used our borrowed calculators. You got a mixed number. You have, whatever it is, 1 and something. Now, if you had that you're using a borrowed calculator, whatever that is, most of you guys can do it, ABC, you guys can flip it around, that's fine. If you're using our borrowed calculators, do that fraction, negative 12, ABC 8, and then hit equals. Go back and hit inverse ABC, and that will give you what the fraction is. So what is negative 12 over 8 reduced to? It's going to be an improper fraction. It is negative what? Negative, I don't want a mixed number. So if it multiply the bottom by it, then add the middle of the one. So it will be what? So it's going to be a large number of the smaller one. Shane? What is it? Negative 3 over 2. Oh yeah, what am I thinking? Yes, it's going to be negative 3 over 2. I was thinking 4 for some reason in my mind. 4 goes in both of them. Negative 3 over 2. So you would have negative 1.5. This is the way we want it. Improper fraction. So I had to go, if you think about it too, another way of going here is I had to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, positive 2, 1, 2. There's an intersection. Down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 2. There's another intersection. Now, if you keep doing that pattern, you'll keep hitting those points. Okay. Y's over X's. Can't state it enough. It's rise over run. Up or down, then left or right. Questions with those? No questions. Okay, moving on to this one.